This presentation will be the first in a series that will cover the historic events of the Bible, from the creation to the crucifixion of Christ. This is set to the passage of time. As this is a timeline of the Bible, we need to first understand what constitutes time. Is it possible to accomplish anything or build anything without a time frame? Imagine what it would be like to construct a major project of the past, such as the ark, without a time frame. The arrival of the pitch to coat the inside and the outside of the ark would be an important element. The pitch needed to be applied as the ark took shape. Imagine the following scenario. Noah says to his son Ham, "When will that pitch arrive?" Ham replies, "About 2 this afternoon." Then Noah asks, "How much time do we have until it gets here?" Ham says, "Dad, let me take out my sundial and I will be able to tell you." How important is time? Battles and kingdoms have been won and lost because of the failure of supporting armies to arrive at a specified time. In this modern era, we are so tied into our hourly time that it seems that the clock controls our life, such as be somewhere, leave by, complete by, let's eat by this time or that. It's a wonder that the government doesn't have a clocked set time for us to die. Being caught up in the detail of time, the larger segments, months and years, seem to take a back seat, except when celebrating our birthday. This brings us to an important consideration. Many things that have happened in the past lose their importance if they can't be tied to a date. This is why the biblical timeline is so important. If it can definitely be shown that the Bible accurately tracks time from the first day of creation of the weekly calendar as observed today, then such a proof will wipe away any doubt of who God is and that the Bible is his inspired word for man. Have you ever considered when time began or what it is? Without two events being tied together, there is no meaning to the measurement of time. One of the two events must have a replicating feature that can be traced by counting the number of cycles from the starting point to the present day. Without this constant, there can be no establishment of time. Only by joining this constant to an episode of the past can this event become historic, then taking on the clarity of answering the question of when. Time, as counted today, is measured in days, months, and years. The origin of these elements comes from the movement of the earth about the sun, which is 1 year, and one rotation of the moon about the earth is 1 month, and the rotation of the earth marking the day, which is arbitrarily divided into seconds, minutes, and hours. This system, over which man has no control, which is a good thing, is the historical record of more than 6,000 trips of the Earth circling the sun. Embedded in these time elements is the known history of man, preserved by our Maker and Redeemer, Jesus Christ, the Word of God. That history was not only preserved as events, but as events tied to a calendar of time, which is the movement of these celestial bodies in the solar system. Just as the movement of man's mechanical clock is determined by the gears within the clock and sets the arbitrary hourly time for man, hence the timeline of man's history is indexed to the movement of the bodies of the solar system, which have never exhibited any change throughout man's history. Just as a mechanical clock requires a setting, so it is with God's clock of man's history. The Bible shows the beginning of time and also reaches out into the future, well beyond 7,000 years, showing the conclusion of time, when there will no longer be days or years or months. Revelation chapter 21, verse 23. The city had no need of the sun or of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God illuminated it. The Lamb is its light. Revelation 22, verse 5. There shall be no night there. They need no lamp nor light of the sun, for the Lord God gives them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. Time, as we count it today, will come to an end. The finger of God is shown in all of these historic events as well as the prophetic events, as they are documented in the Bible, thus being the greatest and most important proof given by God to man that he is the one who rules and controls the ultimate destiny of man and the earth. The Bible will be proved to be true in its pronouncements of time. That is what this timeline proves. Remember, the Bible was written by a collection of authors living at different times and in different places, and written over a period of more than 4,100 years, covering man's history of 6,000 years. Yet, all of these accounts, written by different men in different periods of history, are joined together by an unstoppable calendar of the movement of the earth, sun, and moon, which work together as God the Father has given us as an unchangeable record of time. These celestial bodies have a fixed known cycle which has been recorded by astronomers and is known as the Metonic cycle. This cycle is made up of 13 shorter segments of time, each segment containing 19 years. All of the cycles have embedded within them the 7-day week of creation, so embedded that the last week of every 13th cycle ends on the 7th day of the week, meaning that the next beginning cycle of the 13 has day 1 as the first day of the week, Sunday, just as the creation account relates. This will be explained in greater detail as we examine the facts. It's important to remember that the imprint of the creation week on these cycles is a tremendous proof who made and who controls time. An effort must be applied to understand the replicating features that we observe in the movement of the Earth, the Moon, the Sun, and the planets, so that we can trace or count the number of cycles from their inception to the present day. Without this constant, the function of time cannot be established. And without the function of time, historic events cannot be accurately pinpointed. But by joining together the movements of the sun, moon, and earth with the events of the Bible, clarity is now established in answering the question, when did these events occur in the Bible? This is why it's so important to take the time to examine and understand the movements of these celestial bodies and how time is measured by these movements. This is God's clock. And as it has been pointed out, there is only one cycle of the 13 that has the first day of the first week as day 1 of creation, called Sunday. And that this calendar shows this holds the only correct beginning point for time, as defined in the only complete written record of man's time here on this earth, the Bible. For our purpose here, it is not necessary to present the details of individual years, but just the fact that at the completion of 13 cycles of 19 years each is a total of 247 years. This process repeats itself, beginning again with a duplicate of the creation week. Because of these astronomical facts, it has been determined that the present year, 2017 AD, is the second year of the 8th 19-year time cycle of the 13. For confirmation, you need to look at chart number 3, the 7-day calendar, covering 6,000 years, by figuring back using the cycle of 19 years and using the beginning year of the present 247-year cycle is 1883 AD. The math is the 19-year cycle of times 7 completed cycles, which equals 133 years, plus the 1 completed year, 2016. This equals 134 years. 2017 minus that 134 years equals the year 1883 AD, which is the first year starting the present 247-year cycle. Then by figuring back in increments of 247 years from the beginning of the present cycle, the year of creation is 4046 BC. This is based on the presently accepted figure of approximately 6,000 years from creation to the present year 2017. For a more in-depth proof, see the article Proving the Calendar Generator at www.biblicalcalendarproof.com. The calendar generator demonstrates when the Metonic cycle is used, it produces an accurate calendar which places the historic events on the correct day of the week, as well as the correct month and year. This generator has been constructed to give a yearly calendar showing every seventh day from creation to the present time. The accuracy of the generator can be authenticated by comparing these calendar dates against historic and known dates, which include the day of the week on which the day of the event happened. Using 4 important known dates in history will demonstrate the precision of the generator in giving the correct day of the week, which corresponds with the month, the date, and the year of the historic occurrence. The first one that we're going to look at is the destruction of the Twin Towers in New York. This took place September 11th, 2001 at 8:45 a.m. on a clear Tuesday morning. Looking at the 2001 calendar, it can be seen that a yellow circle appears on the 8th of September, which is a Saturday. Note, all dates shown by the generator are Saturdays. They are used because they are the concluding day of the week. By counting forward 3 days, the 11th is a Tuesday. Another date to confirm is the attack on Pearl Harbor on Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. By looking at the calendar for that year, it shows a yellow circle on the 6th of December, which is a Saturday, making the 7th a Sunday. This, of course, is the day that the attack occurred. The signing of the Declaration of Independence is a third event to look at. This occurred on a Thursday, July 4th, 1776. The generator calendar for 1776 has a yellow circle around the 6th of July. This is a Saturday. We count back 2 days to the 4th. It's seen then to correctly show that it is a Thursday. Continuing with the 4th historical date, to prove the accuracy of the generator, let's look at the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. This happened at the going out of the Sabbath on the 9th day of the 5th month, or the 10th day of that month, a Sunday, when the temple was set afire. Both the temple that Solomon built and Herod's were destroyed on the same day of the week and in the same month. Reference, Mishnah Track, Arkan 11b, page 65, which is similar to the historic writings in Josephus in writing on the wars of the Jews. As the generator's accuracy has shown, over a period of more than 2,000 years, and coupled with the fact that every date throughout those years has been accounted for, not losing a single day. This actually places an undeniable stamp of accuracy on the generator. In order to determine the year of creation, the starting point must be 1882 AD, the last year of the most recent completed 247-year cycle. Part of the 6,000-year story is the 4,000 years of BC. Now, that is the currently accepted year of creation. If these numbers of years are correct, it will be found that they will start at the beginning of one of those 247-year cycles. Remember, it must begin on the first day of creation, a Sunday. The movement of the celestial bodies cannot be altered by man. By adding 1,882 years, the last year of the completed 247-year cycle, to the 4,000 BC years, this adds up to 5,882 years. If we divide that number by the 247, the result is 23.81 cycles. This means that a small number must be added to the 4,000 to complete the 24th cycle. Adding 46 years to 5,882, this would equal 5,928. This figure is evenly divided by the 247-year cycle, giving the whole number 24, placing the creation year at 4046 BC. As the timeline will show, embedded in the pages of the Bible is an exact accounting of this time, from Genesis through Revelation. This accounting is not only accurate to a year, but to the very day on which these events happened, or were to happen. As it has been pointed out, the weekly cycle fits perfectly in the 247-year pattern of the earth, sun, and moon, as we observe it today. It is also proven by the calendar generator that the creation week of 7 days has a replicating function that is perfectly joined to our present 7-day week. It is the weekly tracking through these 247 years cycles which results in a system that is accurate to the day. As this timeline's exclusive use of this calendar shows, it perfectly matches the time elements of the Bible, making it the ultimate proof that the Bible is God's Word and not the work of man. The timeline being presented here is not taken or influenced by secular history, but exclusively follows the accounts of time and events from the Bible. This work, unlike that of most biblical scholars, who put more trust in secular sources of years, begins at 4046 BC, the creation year, to the crucifixion in 30 AD. A total of 4,076 years. It also documents the accepted historical date for the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, as we've already shown. Beginning in Genesis 1:1-2, the original creating act is separated from the narrative of the first day of creation, which started in Genesis 1:3. Why? The Theological Word Book of the Old Testament states on page 214 that the earth was in existence, but formless and void, this being an accepted historical narration and an accepted historical fact. Therefore, Genesis 1:1-2 shows the prehistoric condition of the earth and the universe before day 1 of the 7 days of creation, of the creation narrative. Genesis 1, verse 3, quote, "Then God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." God brought the light, the sun, to shine upon the earth. He then started the earth to rotate. Hence, day 1 of creation. It should be clear at this point in time that the sun, the moon, and the stars were already in existence, which we've just shown. On day 2, God prepared the earth so that plant life can be sustained. Then on the 3rd day, he created plant life. For plant life to grow, a distance from the sun to the earth is critical. So the distance would have been set on day 1 in anticipation of the plant life creation on day 3. In Genesis 1:14-19, "Then God said, 'Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven, to give light on the earth,' and it was so. Then God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Our first thought might be it was on the fourth day when God made these orbs. But we need to remember this is the fourth day. The earth had already rotated 3 times with its periods of darkness and light. The day itself had already been created, which required the existence of the sun. So how should we understand this happening on the fourth day? The key is to know what is meant by the term in verse 17, that he set them. What God did was to realign the entire solar system to act as a great clock. What these verses are really telling us is that God placed the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars in a rotational pattern that put them in a cylindrical position on the fourth day of creation. He set his clock to the correct time. Another point to consider is that the words then and at the beginning of verses 16 and 17 were added by the translators, not being part of the original Hebrew. These words incorrectly infer that the sun and the moon were made on the fourth day. Now we see the biblically fixed system on which the historical events of the Bible can be brought to light. It is the movement of the celestial bodies that God put into their fixed orbits that give us the recordable, traceable time element that answers the question, when?